Hello, everyone, and welcome. A special welcome to Danella and Sharon, who are joining me today from Tamworth Family Support Services. Always lovely to have you here. I would like to acknowledge that I'm on beautiful Dunghutti country today. I am joining you from Southwest Rocks on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, and we are on the wire today. We are talking about asset management and looking after your physical resources. This is a topic we haven't done before. I don't know why we haven't done it before, because it is an area where we do have one little high risk, and I'm calling it a high risk because it's one where we often see gaps. So I thought it might be useful to just walk through the 4 indicators today. Just letting my lovely colleague Kay join us. I'll just say hello to Kay when she gets here. But it's standard 3.2 if you're following along in the evidence guide. I'm on around about page 36. And so today I'm going to walk us through those 4 indicators. I'm going to share some examples of good practice with you. I've got some handy sort of checklists that will help you to not miss anything out. Hello, Kay. Nice to see you. Everyone who's watching the recording, you must know Kay by now. She's always here supporting me and supporting you. She's one of our amazing assessors, so it's always lovely.
Sorry, I'm late.
Your smiling face, Kay. Right, let's kick on. I wanted to, Kay, you'll be helping me here because Danella and Sharon are in the background today. And I'm just going to bring up the whiteboard because I thought by way of chatting about this standard, we might get a bit of a scenario going. So here on the whiteboard, you're going to see that we're purchasing a new car for our organisation. Or we need a new car. Let's just start there. We need a new car. And I'm thinking about this in a couple of ways. I'll show you what I mean. I'm thinking about this as having 4 sort of, what will I call them? 4 main considerations in the life cycle of this car. And the first one, and this is where you'll be helping me to think here. You'll be brainstorming with me. The first one I thought about was the purchase. And then the second one I thought about was to protect it. And then the third one I thought about, excuse me and my wacky numbering, was the maintenance of it. And what do you think the last one was that I was thinking of? Anyone? Namely, Kay?
Disposal.
Yay, of course. Well done. Isn't she good? I'm sure, Sharon, you had that one ready here as well. Sharon's
Sharon would be all over it.
Sharon and Danella will be all over that. All right, let's think about this car. Now, the considerations. If we do a good job here, that's pretty much the asset management and looking after physical resources standard nailed, to be honest, because a car is just one of your physical resources, one of your assets, isn't it? And so this standard is really about how do you care for it. So let's start with the purchase, the considerations at purchase. When it comes to asset management, what sort of things are we considering at point of purchase? They can be internal things, they can be external things. Let's go. I will make a record and Kay can help me. Danella and Sharon, shout out if you want to.
Come on, guys, turn your mute off. The supplier.
Great.
Is that the sort of thing you're going for, Marie?
If you're on a board or you were a manager in an organisation and we really thought it was a new car that we needed, what sorts of things would we be doing at this sort of purchase point in the life cycle of this vehicle? And what about the supplier particularly, Kay?
I'm trying to think of the right words to use. Do we use a preferred supplier? Like, what are the characteristics or whatever of the suppliers that we want to use?
Great.
Talking, if you're talking about purchasing like things like motor vehicles,
Yep.
the first step would be figuring out which sort of vehicle you want to buy. Do you want
Right.
do you want an
The
SUV? Do
specs.
you want whatever?
The type.
Then you'd need to look at, when it comes to suppliers, who's got stock available, what sort of warranty period they have, if it meets all the safety standards you want, do you need the hybrid, do you need petrol, etc.
Exactly. We sometimes call these the life cycle costs, don't we?
Yeah.
Sharon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or we sometimes have a list of life cycle costs, such as ongoing maintenance and things like that. So at the point of purchase, these are the sorts of things that you're thinking about when you're thinking about getting a new car for your organisation. Yeah. The other thing you might be thinking about is, do we lease or purchase? Now, I've said purchase, I've been guiding you a bit, but lease options sometimes can work out a little more efficient and effective for the organisation. So there's that little list there. Now, let's say we've got the car. The other thing we need to consider here is, I'm just going to put it down here, the approval process internally, yeah, in your organisation. So what do you need to submit to be able to get that purchase approved? Now, we're protecting it. What sort of considerations here? You want to protect this asset now?
Are we talking about insurances here?
Excellent. We are talking about insurance. From when you drive it off the lot, right? Don't forget, on day one, probably before, get it insured. What else to protect it?
I guess well, we've already got maintenance down the bottom, haven't we? So we're not going to put that in there. I guess where we house, yeah, you've got it where it's housed.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry about that. What about who's going to be driving it? How can we protect the car from the drivers?
How can we, sorry?
How can we protect this vehicle from the drivers?
If you find out, let us know.
Yeah, I know. I want to just say here,
So you want some policies in place around driver approval? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We want policies and procedures around the vehicle's safety, I suppose, and you know, those sorts of rules. In some cases, it will be training. I know I've worked a lot with remote services, and they will always provide advanced driver training if their staff are doing, you know, remote driving or long distance driving, those sorts of things. In fact, some organisations I've worked with have monitors in the vehicles. Does any organisation you know have that?
We have tracking devices in all our vehicles.
There we go.
You have what, Sharon?
Tracking devices and dash
Oh,
cam.
yeah. Oh. Sorry, that was my phone. I should have turned it off.
That's okay.
I was going to say something about, an organisation I've worked with uses baby seats a lot in their cars. So
yeah.
installation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have an installation, well, we have training for installation, selection and installation
Of baby seats.
Yeah.
Yep.
Baby seats.
Right. So, you know, proper installation that meets standard, those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
As it says, a lot to consider, isn't there? And we continue to go on and on here. So now we're going to maintain the vehicle over the life of the vehicle. What sorts of things we need to consider or have in place here?
Regular servicing.
Great. So a servicing schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use an old mining term here, but people know what I mean. Before they get in a car, they're generally doing some sort of observation or check.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
The logbooks need to be maintained.
We don't have logbooks.
Online ones we do, yes.
Yeah, online. We have electronic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're online, yeah, but that'll be important if you're leasing a vehicle, for example, or if you're trying to track your due, things like that.
A lot of organisations have a kind of review process to swap vehicles around. So low use vehicles, like just to smooth out the mileage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sharon does that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mileage management.
Utilisation.
Yeah.
And sometimes the equipment that's in vehicles needs to be maintained and checked as well. So,
Our first aid kits, those types of things.
oh yeah, good.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have put that. Oh no, that's all right. We'll put it here. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah.
And they need to be checked, don't they, to make sure.
Yeah. So we have regular scheduled audits. Yeah.
Awesome. Now we're disposing of this vehicle now. Finish with it. It's got too many bingles on it now. So considerations here.
Is it salvageable? Is it worth anything now?
Yeah, what's it worth? That's a consideration. That's around depreciation, isn't it? I mean, depreciation is part of your maintenance as well. Certainly something to consider, the depreciation on new versus used vehicles, those sorts of things. What's it worth? It might be worth nothing if it's been sort of fully depreciated. What else? Disposing of this vehicle.
You're trading it in, or you're going to try and sell it privately, or
Beautiful.
You're saying you've actually made a decision to dispose? So like, some organisations will do a bit of a cost benefit about, do we keep going with this even though it's past its planned life cycle? Is it worth selling?
we have 3 new ones coming in this month, and my money getting rid of 2.
Right. Okay. So you're keeping one and running it into the ground, are you?
Yep, we are.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing with my car. I'm just decided I'm going to drive it till it melts because I love it. And it's so customised and it's perfect for me. So I will just deteriorate along with the car.
I think I've just about achieved that with mine. So am I.
That's it.
What else about disposal?
I think that's good. I mean, it's not like you're throwing it in the
I was
back.
just thinking.
In amongst all that, you've also got to make sure you put it on the fixed asset register when you purchase it, and dispose of it off the register when you get rid of it, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's all the accounting requirements.
Yeah.
Very good. We'll put that up there. There we are. Look, we could continue to add to this. I'll tidy that up and I'll save it back as a resource for everyone in our resource list. But look, that is quite an involved load of consideration around looking after an asset. But that's pretty much all of the things that are included in the service excellence standard, the requirements. So let's have a look now at, got to save that so that it's there for me. Let's have a look now at those requirements. There's only 4 in this standard, but if you haven't already got systems around them implemented, it would take a bit of work to meet the requirements for this standard. And there's a lot of risk in this standard too, so it's important. Let's have a little look. If you've got the evidence guide handy, I'm on page 36 of that. So let's check it out here. Assets and physical resources standard. This is what it means. The management of assets and physical resources is responsible, competent, and effective for economic, social, and environmental sustainability. So that's what the standard's about. And there are 4 indicators of success. So let's go through them now. Asset acquisition and disposal decisions are supported by well-developed business cases which also reflect life cycle costs. So for K&I as assessors, what we're looking for is exactly that. If you're acquiring a major asset, now when I say major, that's contextual, all right? So major for a small community centre, you know, could be anything over $1,000, whereas major for something somewhere like Tamworth Family Support, you know, they might have decided that it's over 10 or whatever, 10,000. So that's for you to determine. But a well-developed business case, what would that look like? Have a look there in the evidence guide. There's a list of some things that we would like to see in that sort of good practice business case. I've got a template that I've created from that list, which I think is better than that list. So stay tuned. I'll share that with you in a moment. If you haven't already got one, it considers all of the requirements of this standard plus some of the risk management standard as well. This is an interesting one. Non-asset alternatives are considered in procurement decisions. Now, we try to encourage organisations to get a bit creative here. So this is about thinking, okay, we need a car. We need a car. Let's say that's the scenario. But there are lease options available for a car. You know, there are second-hand options available for a car. There are sharing options available with a car, sharing with another organisation, for example. Organisations now are doing, what do you call not ride sharing, but different hiring arrangements where they just use cars for a few hours a day or a week. There are arrangements now. Sharon, you'll help me out. What's the arrangement it's called where you package up a vehicle as part of somebody's
novated leasing?
Novated leasing. Thanks very much. It's been a while since I've had one, but I did enjoy in the day. I had my XR6s and I had some pretty flash kinds of cars as part of my package, and I loved it because I did a lot of driving. But it's not always an option if you've got a small team, for example, or you don't have people with a wage that can incorporate that kind of novated lease. So it's something to consider. People's use of their own vehicles is also something to consider, all right? But it's important to look into all of the risk around those options.
Some of the inner city services are like they've moved to using cabs and Uber rather than cars. It's too hard. So it's actually cheaper.
We wouldn't get anywhere.
No, we wouldn't.
What was that?
There wouldn't be enough Ubers or taxis in Tamworth for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's viable for Tamworth, but maybe
No.
people are watching.
No, for little towns,
the
it wouldn't be. It really is. It's a serious consideration, isn't it? It's really just doing the maths, isn't it? And thinking it through that risk lens, I mean, sometimes what you'd save on insurance, you know, is it forces you to another decision anyway when it comes to assets. The
Or in Sydney,
organisation,
it'd be what you'd save on parking.
oh yeah, yeah, that's a big expense, isn't it?
In the city, it is, yeah.
Yes. The organisation's physical resources are managed to ensure effective, safe, efficient services, right? So everything that you own or everything that you use to deliver your service is managed so that it's safe and it's, you know, and it can be used effectively and efficiently. So here, what we like to see is an asset register. And one of the best ones I've seen was an organisation that had photos of everything. It was very sort of electronic and digitised the way that the asset register worked. Everything had an asset number. It was quite amazing. And it was up to date, which is something, you know, sometimes smaller organisations this can fall away because it is, you know, there's a long list of things that need to be done. And if you don't have the resources, it can, you know, drop to the middle of the list. So we would want to see an up-to-date asset register, and we would want to see that, you know, there was a depreciation schedule for major assets and things like that, that there's maintenance schedules for things that you're responsible for looking after. And if you're leasing something, that you have an agreement in place with the owner of that asset for how it is going to be maintained in a safe condition.
I think that's a bit of a a point of confusion sometimes.
Mm.
That, like I see that quite a lot in evidence of organisations going, well, we don't own any of our properties. So yeah, that I guess like we still need to see where the responsibility lies. Is that yeah.
Well, not just that, but that you are protected.
Yeah.
That if you identify a hazard in your building, same as if you identify a hazard in your car, that you would be able to fix it if you owned it, or if you leased it, that it would be fixed by whoever you were leasing it from.
Yeah.
So you would have to have some sort of agreement. If it were a building, you'd have to have a lease agreement which clearly defined who was responsible for fixing fixed assets in that property, and who was responsible for fixing things like, the blinds and the heater and, the things in the kitchen, those sorts of things. Sometimes are separated out. But we would ask, if you were leasing your building, we would ask to see a lease agreement, particularly if we looked around and we saw that there was, that it was aging, or that wear and tear had gone beyond, what we would expect to be sort of normal upgrade maintenance. Yeah. Ideally, if you own an asset like a building, you would have an asset management plan which looked at scheduled maintenance, over 5 years, and that the budget supported that. You would have a budget that put away money in reserve for maintaining that asset. And I think about fixed assets and things like hot water systems and painting an asset. That's something that would be cyclical, that those sort of major assets should have an asset management plan, rather than it always being responsive. It's scheduled maintenance. Just like you would with your house, if you owned your own home.
Yeah, not all planned, that's reactive.
I know, it's a perfect world I'm talking about, isn't it? It's the best practice world I'm talking about, obviously, right? But it's the sort of, just gives you an insight into how we think as assessors. So definitely an asset register. Definitely you're doing, you have maintenance schedules for your assets, and you're definitely doing hazard checks.
Yeah.
You're walking around and having a look I say periodically, because it should be something like, quarterly or 6 monthly, depending on the level of risk.
And we're doing those things. Yeah,
it's fantastic. We note a lot of good practice there, and we've got for you, I've got a couple of good hazard checklists that I'm putting in the resources today. One of them's about violence in the workplace, because I know many of you delivering services to clients that can sometimes present with aggression, and so I've got a checklist for you around that, and I've got a checklist around just checking your facilities, your office and things like that. Yeah. Beautiful. We've also got the checklist that we use, which is aligned to some work health and safety requirements. It's also aligned to some good kind of, customer service practice, if you like, in our sector. So we're going to give you the copy of the audit tool that we use there as well. Plus one here, the organisation effectively manages and reviews its impact on the environment. This is often an underbaked area. I say underbaked because, we can often write down here, we often cite recycling, though not great recycling, I have to say. There's very few organisations that I look at those bins and I go, oh, yeah, I see what's happening here. It's not a lot of care and consideration given sometimes to what goes in what bin. But at the other end of this, sometimes organisations have environmental sustainability initiatives and programs to highlight and bring awareness to, to how we are managing our environment, our impact on the environment. So it doesn't say you have to have this and you have to have that. It just says here that you're effectively managing your impact on the environment. So a policy and a procedure is good, but we really rather see things in practice. you know, we really rather see things that promote a change in behaviour, you know, around the place. It's not in a policy and procedure, this one. It's really in how you promote behaviour, how you guide behaviour, I think. But we will say here some consideration of the environment in your purchasing policy, your procurement policy, and therefore in your business case. So I've included it in there for you as well. Anything to add there, my legends in the room?
I'm thinking about including an email that I sent out as paper went missing.
Paper went missing.
I was doing an audit on the paper usage.
Paper's so rare in your office now, it's become like a valued commodity. People are stealing it.
I think that you've got a green policy, but you know, you do sometimes see in purchasing policies, that's one of the criteria, is that, you know, they want to see organisations with, you know, some kind of environmental responsibility there. So particularly, yeah, like even like the smallest little places, you know, will say, well, we're not buying, you know, cheap, you know, Chinese produced junk furniture. We'll go recycled rather than, you know, cheap new that's not great for the environment. So recycling policies, you know, around like reuse and stuff like that are really, like, they're a really good thing that small organisations can do without having to put, you know, too much resource into it. And it often has the benefit of reduced cost as well.
I think it's an employer of choice characteristic as well, the way that, you know, we give consideration to the environment. And, you know, this is something that many of your team members would be interested in, maybe even leading an improvement project around this. So, you know, set it free, see what happens. We talked about 3.2.1, the need to develop a sound business case for asset acquisition. So here's a framework for a sound business case that takes account of the requirements of the standards. You can, you know, take it, change it. You can add bits that make it more relevant for your organisation's approval processes. But, you know, even if there were just a few sentences or, you know, under each of these and a cost comparison. Like, here's our 3 quotes and this is the differences between them, and a really good recommendation. What I like about this list here is that it does sort of consider value for money or cost benefit analysis. It's not always easy to analyse and to communicate, but, you know, it promotes a discussion at the committee or board level, you know, so it's good thing to consider. Like, what's the cost versus the benefit that we're seeing for our organisation? That could be benefit in terms of your strategic plan, benefit in terms of making your service more safe or more efficient. You know, there's lots of ways that you could show benefit. The other thing I like here is the implementation considerations here, because this will sometimes have an impact on the budget as well. So what I'm really talking about here are things like change management, training for staff, disposal of the old asset. They should be considered here, because there's sometimes hidden costs associated with this. If you buy a new, just say ICT system or a new quality management system or something, sometimes it comes with free training, sometimes it doesn't. And that will have an impact on the budget for this purchase. Yeah. So something to consider there. Anything to add on that?
Karen?
No.
No, I think it's pretty well, covered.
Good. This is what we like to see. This is the high risk area that I was talking about at the beginning. This is something we often don't see, regardless of the size of the organisation. We would see in minutes that asset acquisition is discussed, and we definitely would see that there are quotes, but we sometimes don't see the analysis, and we sometimes don't see the risk assessment.
Yeah.
So that's often a gap when we're assessing. So something to just keep an eye out for. Just stop sharing that for a minute, and I'll share with you the asset management and looking after physical resources checklist that I developed. I stole a little bit from BNG and a little bit from, you know, what we know as assessors. And so we've got this. Why don't you see how many you can tick as we go through it? That's not it, Marie. Stop it. I've called it the ACES Asset Management Checklist. So here we go. This will round it out nicely for us today. We'll finish a bit early, I think. All right, few questions here. So quiz style, do you maintain an asset register that tracks your purchase date and all that there?
Yes.
Most of you could say yes. Does the organisation develop business cases which also reflect those life cycle costs and any other alternatives for your major assets? Your organisation's assets kept safe, secure and accessible as required, you know, so, you know, they protected. That's the bit we sort of talked about with regard to the car, isn't it? Do you have adequate insurance cover? You won't know unless you do regular reviews with your insurance.
Annually.
What's good practice on that, do you think? How often should you review your insurance?
Annually, or if something happens, so I would think, Sharon.
Yeah,
you're the
we do it annually.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And certainly if you purchase something. Or if you move, a lot of organisations move, that can have an impact on their insurance cover as well, particularly for things like if it's not as a secure building and things like that, or vice versa. Do you conduct annual reviews or stock takes of your assets? So this could be observing the condition of them, or this could be looking at depreciation. This could be analysing whether or not, you know, the maintenance costs have gone a bit sky high and we've got to get rid of it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's Judy's fun.
Awesome. You're doing well. Do you have a documented plan for the cyclical maintenance and upgrade of your physical assets? So this is the asset management plan we're talking about. This is the maintenance schedule for the vehicles that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I want to say here, specialised equipment. I know you're not all working in clinical environments, but if you have to have any specialised equipment that needs to be calibrated, even if you are keeping medication, so I'm thinking about services that might have a safeguarding role with regard to NDIS clients, and you're looking after their medication, then you would have to have that fridge checked regularly to ensure that sort of cold chain stuff around that clinical requirement. So things like that, when I say specialised equipment, that's what I mean. If you've got a defibrillator, for example, in your building, some organisations do.
Yeah. Even the security duress alarms, personnel alarms have to be checked. Yeah.
Perfect, Danilo. Great contribution. Thinking about things like that really are the sorts of things that are protecting you when it comes to risk, right? So making sure that they're working is part of this, looking after your physical resources.
Okay. Can I make a just raise the issue of, like, particularly on behalf of all the very little organisations that have, you know, very small budgets for assets, and you know, some of them might only have one car, and, you know, the plan really is to, you know, run that until it doesn't work anymore, and then in a lot of cases it's like try and get a grant to get the next car, that sort of thing. So a lot of those organisations I've come across kind of go, well, we don't have an asset plan for that because, you know, we're just going to keep it going as long as we can. What's the best sort of documentation for them to have?
Well, the best documentation for them to have is that asset on their asset register depreciated, if that's where it's at. And for them to have a not regular discussion, I'm going to say periodic again, which means every 6 months or every 12 months, when they're putting their budget together or when they're reviewing their budget, they minute a discussion about that asset in their board papers. So the discussion is exactly like you said, Kay. We're going to keep it, we're going to sell it, do we need a new one, where we're going to get it? So we just want to see those discussions minuted.
Okay.
But if they've got a vehicle that staff are driving for work health and safety purposes, they would need to have a maintenance schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely need a maintenance schedule. But yeah, I think it's that, that longer term plan that a lot of them just kind of are inclined to just chuck it out the window and go, well, there isn't really a plan. Like, we'll replace it if we have to.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a risk. Like, what happens if, the engine blows up and there's no kind of budget there to replace it, to replace the vehicle or replace the engine, if it's thousands of dollars worth of repair. So yeah, there still kind of has to be something, even if they're planning on, running it for 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would think that would be a good thing for organisations, particularly small ones, to include in their business continuity plan. If the car is part of the critical resources that they need to deliver their essential service, then having the car
a really
blow
good point. I've never seen a car in a business continuity plan.
Me either.
Yeah.
Me either. But when you do a business continuity plan, you're actually looking to identify your critical business functions and the resources that you need, isn't it? So a car is one for many organisations. So that would be something that could be included there. And for small
Sorry, Marie. And it's certainly one of the critical resources that we need to be able to deliver the work that we do.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a bus, haven't you, Danella?
We've got a bus amongst all of the other vehicles. Sharon's resourced us with quite a few vehicles now, so got a good fleet.
So a business continuity plan is like a bit like a succession plan for your vehicles. Like, if we lose this one, what do we do? How would we manage that? And it might be just that people need to use their own vehicles for a while in a small organisation, but it should be documented. But this kind of consideration could be part of putting together the annual budget. So if you've got limited resources, then, consolidate these processes in something like, your financial planning process, putting your budget together, and just minute the discussion. Yeah. Good question, Kay. Thanks very much. Are resource and asset requirements considered as part of your annual planning? We just talked about that. Yes. Do you plan the disposal of assets? Okay, so that should be something in your procurement policy or in your acquisition policy. You should have a little section about disposal as well to guide that procedure. And what sort of factors? Well, we considered a lot of factors in our little car scenario at the beginning, didn't we? If you own motor vehicles, is there a documented system for keeping them maintained and tracking their usage? Do you have a robust and effective system in place for facilities management? So this would mean regular checks and a system for recording hazards and monitoring the follow-up of hazards. That's really important. Often we see that work health and safety checks or facilities checks will be done, but they might sit on a form and they might be in a folder somewhere and nothing really happens if anything was identified. So as assessors, we tend to come through and have a look at your most recent check, see if there was anything identified in terms of a hazard, and then we follow that through your system for where it was followed up and where it was actioned. So just be aware we will look for how that happens. And we'll look to where something's not closed out. Why is it not closed out? Okay.
Can I just want to give a shout out to an organisation I assessed recently for best practice.
Ooh.
They had this all running in Teams. They had a Teams channel for maintenance.
Okay.
It was really good. Like,
What a great idea.
It was really schmick. So yeah, they had a channel. Because they had multiple sites. And so there was a reporting stream for each site, and they could see very clearly, what had to be, what was reported, what hadn't been followed up, that sort of thing. So it was really, the staff loved it. They just went, oh, it's so easy. Just go into Teams and log a maintenance request of any kind. So yeah, it's really cool.
What a good way to have lots of people involved, but also to have people feel like it's easy.
It's easy,
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
I don't have
And
to
it was
remember
a
my
big
password.
exercise in change management. Like they put a lot of effort into getting it running. But yeah, it's purring along now. It's really good. So yeah, it was worthwhile, but it was like, ooh, that's really good. I've not seen a system like that before. So it was clever.
That's cool. That's really cool.
And just
That could
using
work for a
existing
small organisation, even a remote. When I say remote, I mean sort of dispersed with many locations. That could work too. Yeah. Does the organisation identify and implement energy conservation strategies? Mostly we see that organisations do that. But again, you know, what we want to see is in your buildings, we want to see this promoted. You know what I mean by that? Little reminders and things like that around the place. You know, the best kinds of globes and things that automatically turn off, all that there. Do you use recycling facilities for your waste, both at, you know, your point, the point in your building, but also, you know, where does that all go? Where does your shredding go? All those sorts of decisions. And the last one, do you identify and address any adverse impact your service has on the environment or the community? So that's why I included that in the business case. You know, at that point, it should be considered and at the point of procurement as well, I suppose, in terms of thinking about those sort of life cycle costs and the impact on the environment. So there you go. If you can answer yes to most of those, you're in good shape for standard 3.2. Hopefully that's helpful. That's about all for today, but I wanted to just give you the list of the resources that we will be sharing with you. So there's the template or the framework for a business case. I have got 3 environmental policies and procedures for you. There's Environment and Facilities Management Policy. These come from Homelessness New South Wales, by the way. So if you're not one of those services, you would have to adapt them. An Environmental Audits Policy and Procedure. And the last one is an Environmental Sustainability Policy. So you've got those samples there. I've also got for you a workplace safety checklist and a workplace violence safety checklist. Now, I will say the best ones I found were from the ACT government, mainly because I didn't have days and days to search around, but I think that these are a fantastic starting point. What I'll do is just share the workplace violence checklist with you, and we'll have a look at a couple of things that appear as hazards or concerns there. So just share that properly. So you can take this and make it your own. It's what it's there for. It's from the Safe Work Authority in the ACT. So workplace violence, the environment, the clients and the customers, the staff, the training that's offered, the way we communicate, the security, so the physical security that we have in place. And then there's a post-incident checklist, which is kind of helpful as well. All right, so hopefully you find that useful. I would just want to thank Danella and Sharon from Tamworth Family Support Service for being here and for always being generous with the ideas that you share, and for Kay giving her amazing assessor insight as always. We hope to see you on the wire again soon, or in a month, in fact. We haven't got a topic for the next one, so if you've got any great ideas, things that are happening, let us know, and we'll develop our topics around you. Or at the moment, I'm developing the topics around where we've got some gaps in our resources. So I'm trying to get across the whole of the service excellence framework for you. So our resource library is looking pretty good at the moment. I think we're up to almost 30 sessions in there. So thank you again, everyone, for working with us. Everybody wave because it looks so good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.